I'm Edie Lush, and I'm here inside the Hub Culture studio. It's Davos 2023. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining me here.
Thank you for inviting us.
Nice to see you again.
Likewise, since last May.
Exactly. So a little bit warmer then, a little bit less snowy.
But very beautiful.
Very beautiful. Exactly. And thank you again for your partnership, the Imperial College Business School as well.
Delighted to be here.
So I've got with me today Francisco Veloso. He's the Dean of the Imperial College Business School. Also very pleased to have Kunmi Demuren, founding partner of Greenhouse Capital. Thanks for joining me.
Pleasure.
So the theme of Davos this year, collaboration in a fragmented world. How does what you do fit into that? Either. Go on, Kunmi.
Well, we're with Greenhouse Capital. We are invested in Web3 and fintech companies, and obviously with emerging markets now, there are a lot of questions about the future of currency, the future of money, the future of trade instruments, and we think it's a really good time to be having conversations now, bringing up here at Davos, where you have decision makers, policy makers, and government and business, to be able to bring that conversation here at the highest level.
What's an investment company doing partnering with a business school, Francisco?
That's a very good question. I mean, that has to do also with the way that we think about our role as business schools, and very much in line with what we just heard, which is, of course, we, being the Imperial College Business School, we're really at the forefront at this intersection between technology and business. And we have, of course, our research, our education, but one thing that's really critical for us is to not only to come and share what we are looking at and partner with, but also to engage and to learn. And this is for the same reasons, you look at what's happening around with currencies around the world, and you want to think about how are you going to engage, and Davos is the perfect environment to do so, bring our expertise, but also learn and understand what are the relevant questions that we push into the future, make sure that we're at the cutting edge of what we do.
Cutting edge, but the challenge with Web3 is that we all thought with Web2 that it was going to be this democratizing, inclusive technology, and while that has been somewhat true, there's been a lot of examples of where it hasn't been so inclusive. We still have 50% of the people in the world who aren't on the internet, for example. So when you're investing in Web3 and thinking about the future of these technologies, how can we ensure that it is an inclusive technology? Kunmi?
Well, that's a really good question. With Web3, we think it's an opportunity to leapfrog Web2. Africa doesn't have a lot of legacy systems, so it's really it's a blank canvas to be able to reinvent and redesign. There've been some success stories in Africa around digital currency and digital money, with Kenya, for example, with M-Pesa, where financial inclusion is really in the high 80s and 90s, and so modeling that with Web3, we think will give us an opportunity to be able to make that more available to kind of the larger population in emerging markets that are really, really needed for everyday use.
Indeed, let me complement that because, for example, at the business school, we've been very involved precisely with this topic. One of our academics, Tarun Ramadore, chaired the household finance panel for the Bank of India a couple of years ago. And one of the conclusions was precisely the importance of financial technology, for financial inclusion, to really bring, this bigger population into the banking and to be able to access financial tools. At the same time, it is also quite important that we think about how to regulate and how to secure this environment. And that's why, academia can play a role, because, you have the entrepreneurial players, very well represented here, that are pushing the boundary and finding ways to connect. But at the same time, you have to reflect, okay, what are the implications? How do you design regulation? How do you engage with government in a way that, supports these great opportunities, but at the same time protects those more vulnerable, so that they're not, this doesn't take them the wrong way.
And this is so important too, especially with countries now thinking now more than ever about social intervention programs. How do you get to the last mile, to the bottom of the pyramid? So I think really a lot of the research that the business school is doing will be really helpful in helping to revolutionize how we engage with our populations.
Incredible example in India. If you think about the India stack, which starts with, if you think about like a hamburger, a vegan hamburger, you think about the first level is the digital identity, and then on top of that, there's the financial inclusion, so everybody has the ability to send money from one person to anybody else, and then you layer on top of that the apps, the health apps, the financial apps, the lending, that kind of thing, and then you can add other things on top of that. And I wonder, and it's so successful so quickly because the government is so much of a part of it, right? And I wonder how successful you think governments, for example, in Africa are being in terms of being part of that move towards a more inclusive Web3.
I think there's going to be, it has to be an evolution because the governments are also under a lot of pressure, especially these, past few months, year, because of devaluations and a lot of pressure that exists. At the same time, the level of confidence and trust that exists in governments around Africa is not quite the same level in other places. And so it is a delicate balance to try to navigate that to get to where we want to be, because at the same time, you cannot get these to the level that you want without that government's support, which is the example that you gave in India when we do this in Africa. And that is why it's important to create this dialogue, because I think the experiences that we will see in other parts of the world are going to be important for what we can do in Africa, but Africa will also have to chart its own path. And as a professor of innovation, I really feel that the entrepreneurial endeavor there and the role of funds and private equity and startups is really important to be able to do that experimentation and find its own trajectory.
Give me some examples of the things that you're investing in, working on, that are really exciting you right now.
Well, for us, we think anything blockchain related is super exciting.
Like what?
Having exchanges, so crypto exchanges, for example, because at a really micro level, you get to see how folks are interacting, how there's value exchange and what they're using it for, how frequently they're using it, the fact that they enjoy this peer-to-peer relationship, and that actually sparks a lot of trade, not only local trade, but also cross-border trade. In some sense, it's making the continent even smaller, right? Because people have the ability to be able to interact, in real time, cheaper, it's auditable, it's traceable.
Not worried about the crypto winter we're in at the moment?
Well, everything has seasons, and just like with everything that's cyclical, it has its ups and downs.
Right.
But, when you have the winter, it's a good time to learn in preparation for the summer.
In fact, if you look back, if you look at 2009, really the trough of the last financial crisis, companies like Airbnb, WhatsApp, and a variety of others were created right at that trough. So to your point, to the winter is also an opportunity to create new initiatives. We were actually discussing about the fact that all these common pressures that exist over the currencies in Africa may actually become a platform for some governments that typically don't talk between each other to pull forces together and to think maybe we need to do something together in a way that we haven't done. And this common force that's really affecting all of them, that may be the spark. We don't know, but that's just one of the examples of the many things that can come out of a difficult winter.
Challenges always present opportunities, and this could be one of such opportunities for the continent to really come together and rally around one subject that then becomes a legacy for how the rest of the world transacts.
All right, thank you so much, Kunmi and Francisco, for stopping by the Hub Culture studio here in Davos 2023, and I'm Edie Lush.